seems like money is a taboo subject that we talk about in the church, and we use money every day. So open your mind that God wants for you. So he asked the question, how would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality. How would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality.
Well, hello, and welcome to How Would Jesus Invest? I am Gayle Gilmore, and my mission each week is to share about that taboo subject and often dirty words in the church: money, prosperity, wealth, and all of that good stuff. And I just want to thank you for joining me this morning because, I know it's kind of hard sometimes getting up on Saturday morning and listening in, but I thank you for joining me. And please let me know that you are watching by typing in the chat. Again, I'm so glad to see you this morning. I want to let you know that I am the author of 4 books, and my award-winning book is How Would Jesus Invest? And I have named this sharing with you. And this book, How Would Jesus Invest? Breaking the Poor Man's Mentality, won the 2011 Christian Choice Book Award back in 2011 in the category of finances. I have always contended, as Hosea 4:6 says, that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, especially in the area of finances, although the Bible has more in it about finances than any other subject, even including salvation and faith. I have also written 4 other books. One is It Can't Be Boring, a Christian youth program for difficult times. Of course, How Would Jesus Invest? Only by the Grace of God, the story of Sharon Dixon, and also this book that you see here, Miracles of the Exchange, Intentional Blessings. I tell you, this is a book that you may want to give yourself as a Christmas gift or give to someone else, because the miracle of the exchange, Jesus's blood was an exchange for our sin. And money, even the coins, the dollar bills, they are exchanged for things that we actually need. And I tell you, this book would be a blessing to you. Now, you can order any of my books from GraceEntwinedMinistries.com, or you can go to the Cash App Gem Gifts. I tell you, this book would make a great Christmas gift. Now, if you get the Miracles of the Exchange through the Cash App, the price is $15. Please include your mail and address, and I will get it back to you. But as I said, any of my books, if you go to the website, GraceEntwinedMinistries.com, you would be able to order any of my books. Again, I am not going to hold you long today, but I just want to share some more lessons today about from the Bible today, because there are many lessons that we can learn. I also want to tell you that I have been married to this handsome man right here for 41 years. He is Pastor James E. Gilmore Sr., the founder and pastor of Grace Entwined Ministries, and I serve as co-pastor. Now, if you are ever in the Tidewater or Hampton Roads area, you can visit us at Grace Entwined Ministries. We are located at 3923 Deep Creek Boulevard in the city of Portsmouth, Virginia. And we have services every Sunday at 10 a.m. You especially want to come this month because we've been celebrating what I call Christmas all month long. And Sunday will not be any different. Now, our services are at 10 o'clock now. If you come at 11 or 11:30 or 12 o'clock, we might be gone. But we are always in worship 10 a.m. And don't forget, our slogan is that you will find real love at the gym. So again, come and visit us. Well, we're going to get into these lessons today. Now, there are 7 lessons that I want to share. But as I was studying these lessons, I said, I'm going to have to do 3 of them this week and do the remaining 4 on next week. I tell you, these are some very good lessons that we are going to learn from Joseph. Now, the story of Joseph, it spans from the 37th chapter of Genesis up to the 50th chapter of Genesis. So it's a whole lot about Joseph. But I want to put it in a nutshell. You know, the challenges when it comes to money, besides not having enough of it or having a lack of money, the other challenge that we have is managing the money that we have. So these lessons are going to touch on both areas, but we're really going to be looking at the management of money. These are the lessons that we are going to learn from Joseph. And as I said before, the story of Joseph starts in Genesis 37. Now, our main patriarchs of the Bible is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the third one being Jacob. This is where Joseph comes from, because Joseph is the knee baby of Jacob. And this story starts in chapter 37. And I'm going to try to summarize this as well as I can, because you need to get the context of this as we go along, because the story starts in chapter 37. And we find that Jacob, he has 12 sons. And as I said, Joseph is the knee baby. Now, this story just starts out, it starts out, it starts out a little interesting, because one of the things that you should never do as a parent, especially if you have more than one child, is to proclaim who is the favorite. And this is how this story starts out. It tells us in the beginning in 37 that Jacob had been married. He had these 12 sons. But it tells us as early as the 3rd verse that Israel, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So if you see Israel, if you see Jacob, it's the same person. And it says, now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children. It says it right away, because Joseph was a child of his old age. He had been married, and this was one of the children that he had when he was older. And it said that's why he loved Joseph so much. And the first thing that he did that illustrated that he loved him more than the other is that he gave Joseph a coat of many colors. Oh my goodness. He didn't do that for the others, but he gave, my mom always taught me. She said, if you have any children, what you do for one, you do for the other. But Jacob or Israel didn't do that. He gave him this beautiful coat of many colors. So that's going to start some jealousy. And it even says in the scripture that after he got that coat of many colors, that they hated Joseph, and they wouldn't really speak to him peaceably unto him. And then on top of that, Joseph starts having these dreams, y'all. He starts having these dreams, and he tells his parents and the brothers about these dreams. One of the dreams, the first dreams, he said they were binding their sheaves of wheat, and the brothers' sheaves was bowing to his sheaves. Oh my goodness. It was like an indication that they were going to be bowing to him, and he was going to be ruling them in the future. And of course, they didn't like that. And then he has another dream. He said that he dreamed that the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to him. The sun and the moon represented his parents, and the stars represented his brothers, and they was going to be bowing. They was going to be bowing down to him. Now, the father got on him a little bit. It said that he rebuked him, but secretly he still said, that was his favorite. So the brothers had had it. The brothers had had it. So they came up with a plot. They said, we're going to get rid of him. They really wanted to kill him. But one of the other brothers said, no, we're not going to kill him. What we're going to do, we're going to teach him a lesson. We're going to throw him in the pit, and we're going to go back and tell Dad that he was killed. We even going to take that pretty coat, and we're going to put some blood on it, and we're going to tell the father that, Joseph was killed. But they threw him in the pit. That is correct. They took the coat and they took it, and the father was grieving and everything. But their intent was to go back and get Joseph out of the pit. But in the meantime, these people, these caravans came back, and they pulled Joseph out of the pit, and they sold him. And so he was sold into Egypt. So during this time in Egypt, he went through a lot of things. He was a slave in Egypt. But at one point, God's hand was still on Joseph because he was wise and he had this leadership spirit about him. And he was noticed by this governor named Potiphar. And Potiphar put him in charge of his household. He said, you are in charge of everything except my wife. But you know what? Joseph must have been fine. He must have been fine because Potiphar's wife was after him. And Joseph kept turning her down. And he said, I'm not going to do anything to you. Your husband has given me charge of everything except you, and I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to do anything. But that didn't stop Potiphar's wife. She kept pursuing. So one day she made all the servants leave the house, and she pursued him again. He turned her down again, but this time she grabbed his clothes and he ran. So you got to do like Joseph do. You got to run sometime when you're getting ready to fall into temptation. Somebody's after you. But the problem was with her grabbing his clothes. When her husband came back home, she claimed that he had assaulted her and so on and so on. So Potiphar had to throw him in prison. Oh my goodness, here we go. But God's hand was still on Joseph. Even in the prison, he was over. He was a leader in the prison. Can you imagine that? He was a leader in the prison. And while he was in the prison with two people that had been thrown in there too, a baker and a butler. And so they had dreams, and they told him the dreams, and he had this gift of interpreting dreams. The baker told his dream, and then the butler told his dream. According to the baker's dream, Joseph interpreted that he was going to be executed. His head was going to be taken off. But the butler, he was a server, the cupbearer, but he was spared. And so it happened just like Joseph said. The baker was executed and the butler was freed. And Joseph said, just remember me. When you get free and everything, just remember me. And of course, the butler, he's freed. He forgets about Joseph. He doesn't even tell anybody about Joseph. But we come to chapter 41, where we're getting most of our lessons from today, these money lessons from, these management lessons from, where we're going to start with the first three. Now, the first thing, or the first lesson that we're going to look at is dependence. We have to rely on God, not just in money matters, but we have to rely on God for everything in our lives. And if we rely for everything, the money part, we're going to, it just falls in line. Because what happens in chapter 41, you know what the thing I love about chapter 41, Joseph goes from being in prison to being second in line in leadership to the Pharaoh in one chapter. You can't tell me God won't do it. But he had to rely on God because in chapter 41, okay, this is 2 years later, after the butler has been released from jail, the Pharaoh starts having these dreams. He has two dreams, and they're pretty similar, but it's different objects that's in it. The first dream that the Pharaoh has is that he sees this dream. There are seven fat cows, and then he sees seven skinny cows. But what's so ironic about this is that the seven skinny cows eat up the seven fat cows. And he wakes up from the dream and he's wondering what that's all about. So he falls back asleep again. And then he has a similar dream, but this time there are seven, that number of completion again. There are seven stalks fat corn, fat, ripe, full, plump corn on these stalks. But then there's seven skinny, look like they're about this, dying and everything, and they actually devour some kind of way and destroy the fat ears of corn. And so, the Pharaoh wakes up, he's just troubled. See, back in those times, they believed in dreams, and those dreams really meant something, and it was very important if there was somebody that could interpret the dream. So when Pharaoh, he got all his wise men and all these astrologers and everything, but they could not interpret his dream. That's when the butler thought and remembered about Joseph, how Joseph had interpreted his dream. And so they bring Joseph to the Pharaoh. Now, another thing that we see about Joseph, when he was called to see the Pharaoh, the scripture says, the word says that he shaved himself. He put on other clothes. That gives us a lesson about even when we're going to pursue a job or a career, we need to present ourselves appropriately. He just didn't go to the Pharaoh any kind of way. He shaved himself. We tell a lot about young people. I don't care if you're going for an interview at McDonald's or somewhere. Why don't you dress up? You might get a manager's job. You may be dressing for a future job. Have your hair nice, young ladies. You don't dress showing everything, but dress business-like. Have your hair all, everything that you. But that's what Joseph did. He shaved. He got his hair together, and he went before the king. Now, this is where this reliance on God came in. He didn't go up there and say, yeah, I'm the one, I can interpret dreams and everything. But he let it be known that he was going to have to rely on God even to interpret the dream. He said in Genesis 41:16, I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. Although he was going to use Joseph as the instrument to interpret the dream, Joseph wanted to let it be known it's not going to be on me. I've got to rely on God, because all these other straws, they could not interpret the dream. And some of them were killed because they couldn't interpret the dream. But he said, I'm going to have to rely on God. He says it again in verses 25-28. He says, God has revealed. He never said, yeah, I was the one. I let Pharaoh know. No, this was all on God. So just like Joseph, we have to rely on God. I don't care if it's about acquiring money. I don't care if it's about managing money or anything in life. Just like Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all, I always say that word all. I don't care what it is. Somebody say, you got to depend on God for everything. Yes, I got to depend on God for everything. I even have to depend on God for life, breath, everything, decisions, everything. You have to rely. It says, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight, or he will direct your path. Oh my goodness. So Joseph demonstrated that. Even Second Corinthians 1:9 says in so many words, do not rely on yourself, rely on God. And Joseph relied on God in every area of his life. And he relied on the Holy Spirit to bring these things to pass. So just like Joseph, you have to fully and you have to totally depend on God. Oh my goodness. Well, what's the second lesson that we can learn from Joseph? Not only depending on God, we have to know the facts. That's where the accounting comes in. So after these dreams, and so what Joseph tells the Pharaoh says, this is what this means. You're going to have these 7 years of plenty. That's what the fat cows and the fat stalks of corn represented. But after the 7 years, you're going to have 7 years of famine. So this is what we need to do. We need to calculate and see what is going to be available. You're going to have to see how much those bonds and stuff can store. We're not going to just spend because we're going to have plenty. We're going to save, which is going to kind of get into our third lesson. But anyway, they calculated what they should do because Joseph was given the knowledge that instead of, even when that famine came, to give it away, they took account of everything. No, we're not going to give it away. We're going to sell it. The other nations are going to come and buy it. See, when we look at accounting, somebody said, oh, Lord, accounting, that sounds like one of those hard subjects that we take in school sometime. It's called accounting, because accounting, it involves several things. We're not talking about you becoming a CPA or certified public accountant or anything else, but in your everyday dealing with finances. Because when it comes to accounting, and these was the areas that Joseph had to look at too, and we have to look at as well. There's 4 areas actually. What we owe, what we own, what we earn, where it goes. And even in this graphic right here, we can see accounting involves what we own. Look at where it says assets at the bottom. Do we own anything? Do we own a house or something that we own? What do we owe? What are our expenditures and things like that? What do we earn? What are the revenues that are coming in? You see that in this chart. And where does it go? The expenditures. And the best way to do that, and I know people don't like this word, but he was wise. He came up with a plan. Guess what? He came up with a budget. He came up with a budget. And a lot of times we think we can do a budget, in our heads, but it's best to, have a written account. That's all it is. A written account of those things. Proverbs again. There are some scriptures. Proverbs 27, 23, and 24. And what it's saying, riches can disappear fast. So watch your business interests closely. Know the state of your flocks. That's what accounting is. You get the facts. The facts. When you're dealing with finances. There are some statistics that I need to share here. that are very important, that falls in line with this accounting. Let me just share this. Just want to, um, get this out of the way here. I just want to share these statistics with you, especially when we have to consider about accounting. 78% of people live paycheck to paycheck. 57% have no written plan or budget. 50% of people say they are fearful about their financial well-being. Okay, so we would be less fearful if we had more aware of the information and where we were going. 24% of millennials demonstrate on the basic financial literacy. One of the things I like that's happening in the schools, especially in our area, and my grandson, had some math, of some consumer math. And I know in high school, they have to take a financial course before they graduate. He was asking me things, they're working on things about interest and credit. And he was asking me questions about what's the difference between rent and mortgage. These are good questions and so forth. But I guess he'd be considered Generation X. But millennials and the generations, however it is, XYZ, need a more financial literacy. And instead of learning all of these rap things and twerking and stuff, we need to have a better understanding of finances. 44% of people have no emergency fund. 43% of student loan borrowers are not making payments. Oh my goodness. Now we know that was true, especially during the pandemic. Now the pandemic is over and now the people find they gave them a break and now they have to pay it back. But that was even a problem before the pandemic. 38% of people have credit card debt. Sometimes we don't understand the credit. We need to look at those credit rates closely. We get the money and sometimes, you got rates 20%, 25%, 29%. This says here, 38% of people have credit card debt, with the average debt being $16,000. It's not counting mortgage and things like that. We're talking about those other types of credit card debts. There's cards and stores and things like that. Have an average debt of $16,000 at 16.47. That's average. So that's kind of in the middle. So you have those high interest rates as well. And we need to take account of those things. And then 33% have saved zero for retirement. And those that have saved, 56% have saved less than $10,000. So, these are things that we need to know the facts about, and like we say, one of the things that we learned from this story, this account, is that we need to know the facts. Again, it says 57% of people have no written plan or budget. All right. We need to kind of imitate Joseph and make a plan so that the level of our finances can be elevated. We can see how we can increase that if we have the facts, So that's the second lesson that we get from Joseph. Now the third one, you probably guessed this one, is saving. Prepare for the future. You have to understand you're going to have some famines. I mean, it's just life. Of course, one of the things that we know that those of us that are working, we are not going to be working the rest of our life, or may not want to work for the rest of life, although there are some that work into 80s and 90s and all of that stuff. But we do, need to save. We need to prepare for the future. We need to save. We need to save for things like retirement, and we need to have an emergency plan. Somebody gets sick, the pandemic came, people got laid off, they lost their jobs. Anything can happen um, when it comes to money. Proverbs 27:23, it says riches can disappear fast, so you have to be saving is very important. Now, one of our main experts in the field of finances, Dave Ramsey, he says only 1 in 10 are saving sufficiently for retirement, and a full 50% are not saving at all. Now, I can believe that. It says the average personal savings rate is 5.6%. And that's about half of what the experts recommend. But the Bible still tells us to save. Proverbs 21:20 says, a wise man saves for the future, saves for his children. Proverbs 13:11, even if you have to save a little bit of time, if you save a little bit of time, it still grows. I always recommend those that are working, if you can get into these savings plans, these 401ks, these IRAs, or whatever, do it, even if you have to do a little bit. You have companies, and I've been in both sides. You have companies, you contribute, they match your contribution. I've been in the other with education, they don't match anything, but you still contribute. Even a little adds up. It concerns me because a lot of our millennials, they go from job to job, and they don't stay anywhere long enough to build up their Social Security or their Medicare. And although it may be, you might think, oh, well, that's not much, but it really helps. Unless you have your own business or own your own business, you probably wouldn't worry about it. But if you're working, you need to save. You need to put some things aside for retirement, because again, the famine is going to come. Joseph said the famine is coming. You're going to have a 7-year famine. You can't take, and it's really not extra when you have overabundance. He said you need to put that aside so that the people can come and not just give it away, but sell it, sell the grain. And that's exactly what they did. They sold it. This was a great plan for Egypt. And that's why when the famine came, God had it so that the famine was in his father's land, and the brothers had to come to Egypt to buy the food and things that they needed. And when they got there, Joseph had been elevated. So, like I said, in one chapter, he went from prisoner to second in line, till when he came, his brothers didn't even recognize him. Now, this picture, I think this is a good representation of how Joseph looked when his brothers came to get, and they didn't even recognize him. But when he revealed himself, oh my goodness, the first thing, they were so afraid, because the first thing that they were thinking, say, after all that we have done to Joseph, he's probably going to have us killed. He probably get back at us. But he had so much compassion. He said, what you did, you meant it for evil. But God, oh, I got to stop right there. But God, oh my goodness, but God, I shared this earlier on the track, but God meant it for good and for to save many people alive, including you, my brothers. And so, like I said, God can take you from one extreme to the next. I told you he did it in just one chapter, chapter 41, because again, Joseph relied on God. He checked out the facts, the accounting, and then he saved, and he was able to even save his brothers and his family. But it all boiled down to relying on God and relying on the Holy Spirit and following that guidance, that he ended up, the way that he did. Oh my goodness. And we have to take on those same lessons. One other thing that I want to say about savings, it's just like there's a great Proverbs 6 through 8. It says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer, no ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food in the harvest." In the summertime, sometimes the ants, they're everywhere, and what they're doing, they're working, they're preparing for when the winter comes. Now, since it's been cold, I haven't seen the first ant. A lot of times in the summer, I have seen ants. Sometimes you see them outside. I see them on the sidewalk sometimes. If somebody dropped a potato chip or a piece of bread or something, they are carrying pieces that are bigger than that. I know one time, a lot of summers ago, I I looked down and I thought I was seeing things, and this potato chip was moving, and it was one ant moving the potato chip, but storing up for the winter. And that's the important lesson about saving. And that's the thing. Just because maybe you get a windfall. Now, if you got it like that, you're a millionaire, whatever like that, that's different. But most of us, we need to save for those times, because again, the famine is going to come. You have to prepare for the future. Not only that, you want to prepare for the generations that are ahead of you, the children and the grandchildren, education. Don't just be selfish about yourself. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend my money on these purses and hair and all this stuff, things that don't even appreciate and value. You want to invest in those things like homes and real estate or whatever those things is. I don't know about stock. I ain't too good with stock, but if you know how to do that like that, but you need to invest in those things and for prepare for the future. So those are the things, those are the lessons that we get. Excuse me for 1 second. Let's see. Let me connect something here right quick. And we're going to conclude this very quickly, because I know you probably got to finish your Christmas shopping and everything. But I just want to do a quick review of these lessons that we have gotten from Joseph today. And like I said, next week I want to come back and finish this up, the other four, because there are four complete lessons that we can learn from. And so, again, let me just review really quickly. First of all, we have to totally depend on God, rely on God in every area, not just money and management and how to get it, but in every area, wisdom, decisions. We got to rely on God. Yes, I got to rely on God for everything. You have to rely on God for everything. The second one is that accounting. You need to know the facts about your finances. Again, those areas, or what you owe, what you own, what you earn, and where it goes. They're the main four things when we talk about our finances. And we get those lessons from Joseph as well. And the second one, of course, is to save. Famine is coming in one way or another. You got to get ready. Retirement, emergency plan, the children's future, education, things like that. You have to prepare for the future. So that's all I have for today. I can't wait to come back and finish this up on next week. These 7 lessons, we did the first 3. Tell somebody about how would Jesus invest? Because we all could use some help in both acquiring money and also managing our money. And Joseph again gives us some great lessons. I always want to remind you again, share this with somebody, but we ask you to subscribe to the Gem Nugget channel, because we are sharing all types of wonderful information to inspire, to encourage, to help someone really in all areas of your life. All right, so I'm gonna get out of here, and again, you may want to finish that Christmas shopping and everything, but don't forget about managing your money. Managing your money. You know, Christmas only comes once a year, so you need to make sure that you manage your money properly. Like you say, you got to live after Christmas. And so until next time, again, I thank you for joining me today. Again, if you didn't catch it at the time at 10 o'clock, I hope you're watching it, wherever you're watching it, whenever you're watching it, because this has been How Would Jesus Invest? See you on next week. Bye-bye.
It seems like money is a taboo subject that we talk about in the church, and we use money every day. So open your mind that God wants for you. So he asked the question, how would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality. How would Jesus invest? We're breaking